It takes about 90 days for a team to get off track from a strategic growth plan that they've built, unless you have something that brings them back every 90 days to revisit. So we call them quarterly priorities. If your long-term targets are the strategic goals that you need to accomplish in order to get to where you said you're going to get in the next 3 years, your short-term goals are the things that you need to focus on in the next 12 months, and your quarterly priorities are the things you need to do in the next 90 days to get you at least a fourth of the way to those short-term goals.
Today on the show, I have the pleasure of speaking with Jeff Standridge. Now, Jeff helps organizations and their leaders generate sustained results in the areas of strategy, innovation, profit growth, organizational effectiveness, and leadership. He is the managing director of Innovation Junkie and the managing partner of Cadron Capital Partners. Now, really pumped and excited to have him on the show today to share his incredible knowledge and insight. But there's enough of me. Let's get him out here. G'day, Jeff. Welcome to the show. How you doing today, mate?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing, Reed? It's great to be here, and I'm honored to speak with you and your listeners.
Well, great to have you here. I'm really interested in getting into your story, and we had a bit of a chat in the green room there, about what you do, and we're going to leave that for later in the show. But we start the show like we do every show. Can you rewind the clock and tell me how you made your first ever dollar as a kid?
First dollar as a kid was cutting grass, mowing yard. Third grade, I would ride my 10-speed bicycle 2 miles into town. My dad would have dropped my lawnmower at the first house that morning. I would mow 1 yard, pull the lawnmower behind the bicycle to 2 or 3 or 4 others, go home, repeat it the next day, and then he would pick up the lawnmower and bring it home at the end of that second day. Do that once a week.
That's awesome. Talk us about your upbringing with money and your relationship. Obviously, we're going to get into what you do now, but there's a story there, right? Like you just didn't wake up one day and said, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to do all these cool things and invest in companies and help people think outside the status quo, which is on your website. We'll get into in a little bit, but give us a story.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very rural part of Arkansas, 1,200 people in my town, 28 people in my graduating class from my public high school. Blue collar family, first generation college student, traveled 2 hours away to the city where I live now to go to college. Thought I was going to be a finance and economics major because I had a second cousin who had sold a pig feed mill to Cargill Corporation, and with the proceeds had bought a bank. And he told me to go get me a finance degree. And upon doing so, he would teach me how to be a banker. So that's what I thought I was going to do till I entered college as an undeclared major and took the only intro to finance and economics and made the only D I've ever made in my life. And so I decided I wasn't going to be a finance major. Now, interestingly, I teach finance at the graduate level in that same college, entrepreneurial finance it is. So that's kind of my upbringing. I graduated from mowing yards to working for a gas station, muffler shop, automotive service center all the way through high school. Actually purchased that business right out of college and learned a lot of lessons there. Ended up losing that business because of my ignorance in many instances and having to spend the next decade paying back the debt on that. Worked in healthcare for a number of years, and then took a corporate job where I got into mergers and acquisitions and entrepreneurship, where I do entrepreneurial things within the safety net of a corporate salary. Started companies in Poland, China, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, scaled all of those companies. And then about 8 years ago, left my corporate employment to do what I do today, which is basically empower and inspire entrepreneurs and small business leaders.
And why was that? Why did you want to leave and inspire other people? Like what was the genesis of one day, hey, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to go help others.
Well, I had been fairly active from an investment perspective. Personally, I had a real estate portfolio of rental properties, both residential and commercial properties, with a partner. I had begun in 2010 investing in some local businesses, and some of which I still own today. I have a 3-location insurance group that I acquired in 2010, and several other businesses since that time. And in 2013, I was chair of the local Chamber of Commerce. So we're a community of about 70,000 outside of Little Rock, our capital city. And so I was chairing the Chamber of Commerce. and doing some research on what is it that spurs startup activity in communities. What's the ideal startup community? And I saw that we had all the makings of being an ideal community: 3 institutions of higher education, 2 very large technology employers, a very educated workforce, yet we weren't spinning out much startup activity. So I put a group together as chair of the chamber to study that issue. We ultimately ended up creating a venture fund called Cadron Capital Partners, which is the fund that I serve as one of the GPs of today, and ended up launching the Entrepreneurship Initiative in 2016. And at that time, it was almost exactly on my 50th birthday. And I said, I'd spent the first half of my life making a living. I want to spend the second half making more of a difference. And so
that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's all around Innovation Junkie, right? The brand.
That's all around Innovation Junkie, Startup Junkie. So we work both with entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs from an idea stage all the way up to about $5 million through a business model that's sponsored by third-party sources of funding. And then Innovation Junkie is billable consulting with companies that don't really qualify for that sponsored consulting.
Talk to me about the first one. Where who's your ideal? I don't know. Say client, student, maybe. Is the
they're
right
clients.
Word?
We consider them clients. Yeah. I mean, we are a consulting firm. Startup Junkie Conductor is, but we're doing it with dollars that are being provided through contracts with the U.S. Small Business Administration, the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and a variety of other sources. And so we consider them clients. We treat them like clients. And ideally, our best clients are tech-enabled or knowledge-based entrepreneurs.
Why do you think, rather than the small insurance group that you bought, it sounds like you still own today, why is tech the route?
But let me preface that by saying we don't turn anybody away. Mm-hmm. But our funding that comes from the Small Business Administration and Arkansas Economic Development Commission and others, they provide that funding because they have a vested interest in creating high-wage jobs.
Gotcha.
And so jobs, growing the economy through entrepreneurship, and high wage jobs are generally considered 150% of the average wage within a particular geography. Gotcha. So, like I said, we don't turn anybody away, but the ideal clients that we really go after with our accelerator and some of our other programming are tech-enabled and knowledge-based industries.
It nearly sounds like you're a little incubator, if that would.
We do have an incubator. Well, we do have an incubator right up the road here. It's 11,500 square feet, and we have about 150 members who operate out of that, and run an accelerator, a 14-week accelerator that's actually kicking off next week. So yeah, we are somewhat of an incubator.
Gotcha. Talk to me a little bit more about, I mentioned in the introduction, you're looking to help generate leaders in strategy, innovation, profit growth, mm-hmm. organizational mm-hmm. effectiveness, and leadership. Like, what are you doing? What's the special sauce here when someone comes in and say, you know what, Jeff, I want you to help me with mm-hmm. this idea. How do we go and you have an impact not only on the human, but also, yep. or the organization, but also in the surrounding community? Sure.
Yeah. So we have two elements to our secret sauce, maybe 2 ingredients to our secret sauce. One is a strategic growth assessment that we've created called the Growth DX. It's software driven. GrowthDX.ai is where it's located. And effectively, it allows a senior leadership team, the CEO and whomever he or she chooses. We suggest it's the top 5 to 10 leaders within an organization, to assess the company against about 75 different best practices. And those best practices are spread across 7 different diagnostic domains, from revenue velocity to organizational effectiveness, operational effectiveness, leadership effectiveness, innovation readiness, digital and data readiness, and financial disciplines. And once they complete that assessment, that serves as the diagnostic, so to speak. And from that, we then sit down and we help them create a strategic growth plan that is focused over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, usually 3 years, that is informed by that Growth DX. And it's not just a planning exercise, it's actually our strategic growth system. We actually wrap around that advisory services that help them drive the execution of their strategic growth system. So we have a system that boils all the way down to a weekly meeting cadence against the execution of that plan.
Gotcha. And so this is more established companies have some sort of revenue right now and saying, hey, look, let's look at your leadership team. Let's look at what, assets you have within the business, digital and or physical, and let's create and where do you want to go and what's your vision, and then help them, I guess, lead them down the path, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a format to help them create the vision of where they're going, the long-term targets to get there, the strategy, the actual business strategy behind it, as well as the execution process.
Yeah, look, and I don't want to go off in two different tangents. There's actually a book here that I've got on my shelf called 24 Assets. It's by Dan Priestley. Very interesting little book, and it's around the similar thing, the diagnostics you just mentioned before. And I only bring that up. There's so many different bloody ways, but ultimately it's a way, and I do it in my company, of every year, like stuff from, if you're a legal firm, having stock ready, operational agreements that you can pull off the shelf and you can sell to clients, and everywhere through to there's 24 assets. You got to assess yourself, but it sounds very similar to what you're doing, Jeff, in that you're constantly looking and assessing where businesses are in their growth and where they're deficient to continue to help them get to where they need to be across a lot of spectrums, right? Not just saying the physical assets, but leadership assets and IP and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And once we do that assessment and we help them put that plan together and we work with them and throughout that process, we usually begin to observe. We always begin to observe what kind of culture they're creating. And we've actually built a cultural framework we call the culture of excellence, which really is 6 elements that we've observed that the companies that generate sustained strategic growth generally exhibit or focus on these 6 elements that cultivate that culture of excellence.
Do you want to quickly walk us through those 6 elements?
Yeah. Starts off with strong leadership. So a strong leadership team who they're bought into the direction of the company, they're bought into the strategy of the company, they're bought into the core values of the company, and they embody that on a day-to-day basis. Coupled with that, they create clarity and focus. So they know who they are, where they're going, how they're going to get there, and they ensure that every employee in the organization not only understands where the organization's going, but how they contribute in their individual roles to that direction as well. Then they have engaged and committed teammates. So employee engagement is a huge issue right now. Employee turnover is when someone quits and leaves. Employee disengagement is when they quit and stay. And some of the research suggests that if you take someone's fully loaded salary, disengagement increases the cost of that fully loaded salary from 35 to 50%. So disengagement's a huge issue. So that's individually competent people who are committed to the direction of the organization, who have clearly defined and accepted roles, and that's kind of what drives engagement. Empowering communication is another element. The word empower itself means to make someone stronger and more confident in dealing with the circumstances they're facing. So an organization that has a culture of empowering communication, when people talk to each other, when people give direction to one another, when people correct one another, they're doing so in a manner that that goes beyond just mutual support, respect, and encouragement. It moves to actually being empowering, making them stronger and more confident, even if it's a tough conversation. The 5th item is 100% accountability. And what that means is not only do I know precisely how my role contributes to the direction of the organization, I am accountable for that. I own that sandbox, and I know that anything that gets done in that sandbox is my responsibility unless I collaborate with someone else and we agree on how to divvy up those responsibilities. 100% accountability looks like this, Reed. If I owe you something by noon on Thursday, and I find out on Monday afternoon that I have a major client issue and it has put me at risk at being able to deliver that to you, I don't wait until Thursday when you ask me about it to then tell you that I can't do it because I have all these reasons why I couldn't. I go to you immediately on Monday and say, is Thursday at noon a drop dead? And you may say, no, I've had some things that have gotten me off track. I'm not going to be able to do it until Monday. No harm, no foul. Everything's good. But if you say, yeah, not only is noon on Thursday a drop dead, I really could use it by 11:30 because I have a 1 o'clock client meeting that's dependent upon that. Then I have to immediately work with you to figure out how to reshuffle my priorities so that I can get you what you need by your drop dead. 100% accountability does that. It doesn't mean that you never change the expectation that's been set. It means that the moment at which you understand that you're at risk of doing what you said you're going to do, you go have a conversation with the dependent of that output.
Love it.
And then the last one is organizational agility. That's based on the great management philosopher Mike Tyson, who said everybody has a plan till he punches them in the mouth. And every entrepreneur, every business owner, every company executive has been punched in the mouth figuratively. They've had their day planned, they've had their week planned, they've had their year planned, and something came that punched them in the mouth. Strong organizations, strong leaders who build a culture of excellence not only foster individual resilience within the population of the company, but they foster organizational resilience and agility as well.
I absolutely love it. In our organization, we use a book which is just behind me, Traction, which I'm sure you've heard. Yep. There's so many different elements out there. Like Traction's very good at laying the foundation, but like what you've just mentioned just there about accountability, it doesn't really go into that as much, right?
If you were to look at our strategic growth system, you would see that it is a little bit Traction, a little bit Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, a little bit of The Advantage by Patrick Lencioni, a little bit of Good to Great. So it's got elements of all of those aspects in it.
Who not how's over here?
Yep, for sure.
For sure. But I think at the end of the day, what you're getting at is like, it does start, and I know because I've implemented my company, right? Anywhere you go as an organization, as a leader, you have to take responsibility that, particularly in this space, which you probably have seen a lot of, one-man bands or solo entrepreneurs into growing into having employees and having a structure below them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
It's so hard to let the vine go. It's so hard to have the accountability. But like talking about accountability and engagement and clarity starts with having people around you and then empowering them to, like, it's nearly like I always hear the word come to my mind is like, I want to shine the light on my employees or shine my light on the other team members to lift them up, to make them want to, paying them a salary is all well and good, and getting compensation is all well and good. But having that, I want to, the disengagement score you just mentioned.
That's right.
When you lose that, that's a reflection of the leaders in the company because they haven't built out these 6-7 steps, whether it's Traction, whether it's whatever it is, but then keeping to it, right? Not just going, this is a one good idea, 6 months later we're not freaking doing it at all. It's keeping it. So how do you see in the your world? Do you implement your strategy, and is it's an ongoing basis? I would assume it's an ongoing check-in on all these sort of elements.
It is, and that's why we call it the strategic growth system. It takes about 90 days for a team to get off track from a strategic growth plan that they've built, unless you have something that brings them back every 90 days to revisit. So we look at Traction calls it ROCKS. He actually borrowed that. Gino Wickman borrowed that from Stephen Covey, who originally used the term ROCKS. We call them quarterly priorities. And so what are the things, if your long-term targets are the strategic goals that you need to accomplish in order to get to where you said you're going to get in the next 3 years, your short-term goals are the things that you need to focus on in the next 12 months, and your quarterly priorities are the things you need to do in the next 90 days to get you at least a fourth of the way to those short-term goals. Yep. And so then there's a weekly meeting cadence followed by a quarterly check-in as well.
Yep. We use what's called a level 10 on our Monday morning meetings. Make sure everyone
I'm familiar with that for sure.
So it's all these. I think what we're getting for the listeners is that like this isn't just fluff, right? This isn't just BS. It's tried and true. There's systems out there. There's people like Jeff who can guide you. And at the end of the day, if you're a leader listening to this podcast, it's what resonates with you, right? All these systems are really, really good, but they're only as good as the implementation and how you're going to follow up. And we can give all the fancy words and acronyms and all that crap, but unless you take responsibility as the leader of the company, you've got to be able to do it. Just to wrap up on that, we will ask at the end of the show where people can reach you. But you mentioned earlier that anyone can come along and just hey Jeff, I want to pick your brain. I want to consult with. Mm-hmm. Where's the ideal client in your mind as they approach you and say, I need a bit of help?
Well, so on the innovation junkie side of the house, which is pretty much global, the entrepreneurial support side is funded specifically for the state of Arkansas. So all of that funded work is for our Arkansas-based entrepreneurs. They come to us at all levels. On the innovation junkie side, it's usually somewhere between 10 and $250 million of annualized revenue. Now we serve companies that are even 500 million, and we serve divisions of some very large multi-billion-dollar corporations. Generally, the larger companies that we're working with are coming to us for some of our innovation expertise, helping them to really look at their products and services, look at the way they do business, and helping them innovate. And so it really, back in that tech or tech-enabled space, advanced manufacturing, we do some work there, and we do quite a bit of work in healthcare as well.
Gotcha. And people below 10 million, because a lot of the listeners on this show would be probably in that sub $10 million range. Yeah. I'm sure that no harm, no foul coming giving you a knock on the door.
No, we work with a number that are in the what I'd call the $3 to $10 million range for some specific services. So absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Quickly as we pivot towards the end of the show, how my curiosity brain from you providing this service, and you mentioned Cadron Capital earlier. Yeah. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Cadron Capital.
Cadron Capital. It would have been. It's an interesting play there. Walk me through. Like, was it the chicken or the egg? Like, did you have the service to help with the innovation junkie, and the services of providing that platform for people to grow, to then allow an investment platform to spur from that? Because people are saying, hey, look, I need capital. You've taught me all these great things, but I need the money to bloody go out and do it.
Yeah, it started with the entrepreneurial support organization. So the Startup Junkie Conductor, that was the funded services that we provide to Arkansas-based entrepreneurs. That's how it got started. And then from that, my business partners up in Northwest Arkansas and we each had our own funds, and we merged those together and created Cadron Capital Partners in about 2019. And we're relatively small on the investment side. We generally consider ourselves as strategic followers. Mm-hmm. So we're our first fund, we did some pre-revenue stuff. We don't do a lot of pre-revenue stuff now. In fact, we try to stay away from pre-revenue. We're generally looking at companies that are in the annual recurring revenue range of couple of $1 million if they're SaaS related. If they're a product or service related, maybe a little more than that. Rapidly growing and with a strong management team, obviously, and clearly scalable. And that's what we're looking at.
Yep. No, it's so interesting. As a leader myself, I've been in the multifamily space for so many years. It's now looking at M&A, actually, looking at existing companies and using the same skills that we've developed on manipulating net operating income and marketing and yep. building culture and all that stuff. And the widget that I've been doing for the last 10 years, 15 years is housing, right? How do you shift that into services or products or stuff like that? It's all so, I love this stuff. I love being able to go in and talk to people, particularly on the investment level, where you get someone who's really passionate about their product, their great management team. And it seems like you've got the really good balance of not only providing a platform to help them maybe grow and have different ideas about their leadership, but then be like, hey, you know what? We've got some investments on this side that could help you achieve that. Does it ever cross?
Yeah, for sure. And because we're not traditional consultants, we have been in and out of startups ourselves. We have been in and out of large companies ourselves. So we're operators first. We're also investors. So we've written, millions of dollars in checks over the years, and we're advisors. So we work with private equity firms a lot of times as well, who will bring us in to work with their portfolio companies. And we actually also, talking about real estate, there's actually some really cool startup real estate investment platforms I'm sure you're aware of out there today. Arrived Homes out of Seattle, which is for rental, single family rental properties where, you can buy a fractional portion of that through an investment plan. Acre Trader, which is farmland and wooded territories, wooded land that's here based in Arkansas, up in Northwest Arkansas. Some really cool real estate investment platforms that we've had the opportunities to work with as well.
Real estate SaaS is, I remember 10 years ago starting and getting someone to sign a PPM through DocuSign was the most innovative thing. And now today everyone's got a goddamn bloody portal. And, which portal am I on with your investment? And then there's all this fractional ownership. And it's all spurred from the Jobs Act in 2012. And,
for sure.
But real estate in general has been the old clunky dinosaur that didn't have a lot of SaaS, and now it feels like there's just so much SaaS involved. I was getting pitched the other day by someone about SaaS, and I'm like, God, as a real estate investment company, it seems like I need 6 figures of just bloody SaaS all the time. It's just like I'm getting to the point. It's like it's too much. Time out. Then we've got to bulk SaaS right now. So great stuff. Look, as we wind up the end of the show, what's the goal for you over the next 12 to 18 months? I'm sure you've probably had a bit of a slowdown yourself, given where we are and a lot, in terms of inflation and where interest rates are at. But are you seeing the tables turn and you got some more optimism on the horizon as you look at new companies?
I do have some optimism out there. The market and the economy doesn't always run parallel to one another. It's interesting when the real estate market is running well and the traditional public markets are doing well. It's hard to find investors for some of these alternative asset classes like venture funding and private equity. Because, why take the added risk when the market's flying or the real estate's flying or what have you? And so they're good and bads on both sides. But, we've got a steady pipeline of prospects coming through for our venture fund. And we're excited about that. We'll probably be starting another fund probably in mid 2025, I suspect. There's a real interesting dynamic happening out there today where about 50% of all companies. First of all, when we talk about small businesses, we're talking about 99% of all employers in the United States. 99%. They're responsible for 50% of all employees. And so if you just watch CNBC, you're just going to see the ones that are on the, you're just going to hear about 1% of the population of companies. But of those 99% of employers, those small businesses, about 50% of them are owned by people 55 years of age and older. 10,000 of them are retiring every single day.
Yep.
And the past data suggests that if they retire and sell their business, if they were the founder generation of that business and they sell it to the second generation, regardless of whether it's in the family or outside the family, just the second generation of owner, about 74% of those will fail. Because the business has been built around the cult of personality of that founder. Yep. And that's a huge issue in terms of the potential job loss and economic impact just at the macro level. But it's also a huge opportunity for what I would think would be a kind of a new breed of private equity funds to come along and roll up some of those companies and help them succeed. And so big financial opportunity there as well. So I'm bullish on that opportunity over the course of the next few years.
I couldn't echo your sentiments any further. That I completely agree as well. We're actually starting a different venture to our capital raising arm outside of real estate because of that exact thing.
Very good.
Right? Finding great operators in certain. We're targeting more CPA firms, insurance companies, actually,
sure.
Wealth management firms.
Yep.
And bolting them on and letting people, the roll up strategy. So
sure.
Very interesting. I'll have to get back in a year's time or something. I have to chat and see how that all pans out. So, but Jeff, at the end of the show, we love to do the top 5 investing tips. You ready to get into it?
Sure.
Mate, question number 1 is, what's the daily habit that you practice to keep on track towards your goals?
The daily habit, every day I get up and I flip across a couple of different financial channels and I keep them running in my office. So I'm looking at CNBC, I'm looking at Bloomberg, and I'm looking at Fox Business.
Gotcha.
And I'm watching across all of those. I'm looking at the market, I'm looking at economic indicators, and I do that literally every single day.
Love it. Love it. Question number 2 is, who's been the most successful? Who's been the most influential person in your career to date?
There have been several, but I have to say, and this is going to sound goofy, but I have to say my mother. She'll be 82 years old in November.
Bless
she
her.
still works. She still works. Works for a bank and actually runs kind of the senior business development office for seniors and does travel trips with them and what have you. And she's decided that she wants to work for a couple more years. And so,
That's
then
great.
she's going to think about retiring. She actually has 2 jobs. She does that and she's a part-time real estate agent.
Oh, God. God, she is crushing it at 82. I think if we're doing half what she's doing at that age, we'll be bloody successful. So
exactly.
Awesome to Jeff's mum. Question number 3 is, what's the most influential tool in your business? And when I say tool, it could be a physical tool like a journal or a phone, or it could be a piece of software that you just can't run the business without. What is it?
I would have said up until a few years ago that it was a journal and I wrote everything down. Now I actually use a note-taking app on my iPad for that, and it's still vitally important. My calendar, my Apple calendar. But most recently, I use ChatGPT almost every single day and other AI tools.
That's awesome. That's awesome, mate. Question number 4 is, one sentence. What's been the biggest failure in your career? What did you learn from that failure?
So I told you about buying that business straight out of college. Now, and I didn't work in that business. So I was a paramedic and a respiratory therapist on a helicopter team for Arkansas Children's Hospital. So I literally worked 7 days on, 7 days off. So I thought that I could buy this business, hire someone to run it for me, and then I could just pop in down there every 2 weeks and check on it and make sure everything's good. And I learned a ton there. Number one, I learned that no one will run your business like you run your business, that you have to have systems and processes in place, not just good intentions. Number 2, I learned that compensation has an effect on people's behavior, and you can pay someone too much in a guaranteed salary, and that really saps their motivation to go above and beyond. And so I did that. I paid too much, and I paid more than this young gentleman had ever made in his career in personal salary. And so he wasn't motivated to do the extra work to earn additional commissions. And then I learned that, there is an alternative to bankruptcy. You can just look the banker in the eye and say, I can't pay you today, but I will pay you back. And he said, well, how much can you pay a month? And I told him, and he said, then I'll get you a payment book. And so for the next 10 years, I paid off that debt, which I just chalked it up to tuition to business school.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sure we could have a whole freaking episode just on that story just there. No, I love it. I love it. Well, Jeff, you've been such a wealth of knowledge. The last question is, where can people reach you to continue the conversation?
I'm very active on LinkedIn. Again, my name's Jeff Standridge, and that's my handle on LinkedIn. I also have a website, jeffstandridge.com. And if they want to reach out to me directly via email, jeffs@innovationjunkie.com.
Gotcha, mate. Well, look, I want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your day. Just want to reflect some of the things that I took away from today's show. I think it's just hearing that last story and your evolution, and just mentioning that you're an ENT on a helicopter.
EMT, yeah.
EMT, and then you were in the business, and now you're evolving. It's your constant evolution. And actually, now that I know your mum's story, I can see where I think I know where you get it from. But just having that ability to create a platform where you're helping businesses, but then helping them potentially be startups. Sorry, not startup, but investment platform as well. And you can't have one without the other. Money can only go so far. I think is so important. And it is the fundamentals to whatever we do, is building culture and your 6 elements of success. I think is super fundamental to what you do and how you breed success over the long term. And some of those those stories there, like no one will ever run your business like you run your business. I completely agree with that. Like the idea on paper of buying a business and hiring a CEO to do it is just not going to be the same as someone else. So
that's right.
Mate, did I leave anything out there, or you want to add anything before we wrap up the show?
That's it, Reed. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate what you do, and it's been a pleasure to be with you and your listeners.
Mate, awesome stuff. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up very, very soon.
Sounds good. See you.
Well, there you have it. Another cracking episode jam-packed with some incredible advice from Jeff. Remember, if you want to check him out, it's at jeffstandridge.com. You can also check it out, Jeff S. at innovationjunkie.com. He's all over LinkedIn. Check him out. All the links from today's show notes will be up on our website at reedgoossens.com. Remember, the easiest way to give back to this show is give it a 5-star review or tell your friends about it. We love to share the message. We've been going for a decade on this show. Keep the message going. We're going to do this all again next week. So remember, be bold, be brave, and go give life a crack.